Hey everyone, Livy here, back with another video, and today I am doing my May 2025 monthly musings. If you're new to this or haven't seen any of them before, basically this is a video in which I talk about all things life, books I read during the month, and also my tarot oracle practice, as it were. Let's kind of get right into it with May because oh man, it was a month that felt like it lasted 1,000 years. I don't know. I mean, okay. So this is, I will start by saying before I go into like the real life stuff. So this is my card for the month of May. I feel like I've been forgetting to do these the past couple of months or so. I don't know. It's been chaotic, but we're going to show May's. So my card for the month of May, as you can see, is Judgment. And I feel like this card, out of all the decks I use this month, I feel like this card was kind of the most accurate, because there's literally like, the month felt like a volcano was like erupting in the background, as well as a comet flying down to Earth. But at the same time, like, I was trying to just like live my life and not be so stressed despite all the things coming my way that were trying to take me out. It kind of just felt like that, you know? May was kind of, yeah, it was very chaotic. And part of the reason why May was so chaotic was that it was winding down. I mean, the school year's not, at the time me filming this, it's like June, sorry. It's early June. And school year, if you can believe, is not over yet. We still have like one more week at the time me filming this. But May was chaos because it was like state testing month, and there was just a lot of insanity happening. A lot of like unnecessary stress, I think about now. Like it literally, it was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of like not knowing what was going to happen. So I was just trying to do my best, but yeah, it took me out. Also because, once again, who's surprised, I got like really sick. I had a really bad, I guess it's a stomach bug. I don't know. At this point, I've had so many of them that I'm just going to assume my intestines are damaged. I don't know what it is, but I got severely sick and it was bad. I guess that's all I'm going to say on that, but it was really bad. Really, really, really bad. Like stomach bug, like throwing up and the other way, and just so many things. So yeah, Judgment, I don't know, I felt this card a lot. I mean, despite that, I was trying to do like, I tried on weekends and stuff when I had time. I tried to go on day trips and do things like that, but there were just also a lot of just like obligations in general. So, needless to say, May was a crazy time. It really was kind of like this card from this deck. This is one of the decks I used in May. This is from the Carrot Tarts Tarot. I'm going to talk more about it in a little bit, but since that was life and how chaotic life was, and me being sick again and still trying to persist despite all that, let's kind of go now into books. Okay, I'll be honest, I only read 2 books during the month of May, and I should also tell you how chaotic the month was, that I was so stressed out I wasn't even reading. Not even reading correctly, because yeah, it was a lot. The first book that I read in the month of May was this one. This is Sir Callie and the Champions of Helston. This is actually a middle grade fantasy novel. And if you are somebody who is non-binary, queer, or just likes cute fantasy stories about like finding yourself and conquering over systems of oppression and otherwise, I would highly recommend this one. So because the main character, Callie, is non-binary, they want to use they, them pronouns. They get a lot of pushback from the system that keeps trying to insist they are a girl, and having to navigate those feelings. I don't know. I felt very seen in this book. So as you can imagine, I gave this book, I think it was a 4.5 or 5. It might be biased because, again, I felt very connected. I think if anything that the story could have improved on was like how some of the side characters were done. Just a little bit. Like, I just wanted a little more from some of them. So that's kind of why I only gave it a 4.5. I think this is supposed to have a second book, but I have to look into that. I have no idea. But yeah, I read this, and this was actually a quick read for me. So I was excited for May and like reading in general. But then then I read this book, and for some reason this book is what put me in a reading slump, which is kind of strange. But anyways, this is called The Forest of Enchantments. This is the author. I don't want to butcher the name. I think it's Citra is how you're supposed to say this, or Chitra. I wish. I don't know. I'm not always good with knowing the titles. But anyways, this book kind of put me in a slump because on the one hand, I was really interested because this was so different from what I'm used to. I didn't know anything about the background of this story, but this is supposed to be a retelling of the Ramayana from the point of view of Sita, who I guess is the wife of the main guy from the story. And I found myself getting kind of annoyed as part of it went through. And it has to more do with like the world itself and how badly the world treated the women in the story. That was kind of like unsettling. I understand that once upon a time, this was just the way things were, right? Like women were horribly treated, especially in the case of Sita, because she had to basically she did one trial by fire where basically her husband accused her of being impure now because she was forcibly taken away by this Ashura. I forget what they're like, I don't know, the closest equivalent I can think of is kind of like a demonic figure, but it's also kind of a god. Took her away to make Ram mad. It was this whole thing. And so she was imprisoned, and she was pure though. She was not touched. She was not essayed. Nothing like that happened. But her husband was so suspicious of her that not only did he make her do a trial by fire once, he tried to make her do it again a second time near the end of the book. And that's when I think I lost my goddamn mind. I lost my goddamn mind because it was like, bro, you already know that she was loyal to you, that she was doing everything she could for you. What are you talking about? Like, why are you making her do this again? Why are you suddenly suspicious? Why does she suddenly have to be banished again? It's just this whole thing that was really, really annoying. And so at some point in time, I just found myself getting like mad on the character's behalf. And so it was just not as enjoyable of an experience as I thought it would be. Like, why are we doing... It was more a question of, like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this again? Why? So, unfortunately, I think this book ended up sitting more in a 3 space for me. I was just wanting more. I wanted more from it. I wanted more rationale behind it. I wanted more something that made actual sense. The beginning of the story was really good, though. It was when they got banished and then the stuff started happening with her being like kidnapped and stuff is where some of the plot stopped making sense enough for me. And so that's when I found my enjoyment wavering. But yeah, this was the second book I read, The Forest of Enchantments. And I guess we're going to move on now to decks because what's funny is I was very ambitious in what decks I thought I was going to use during this month. And then I don't know what it was. I just didn't end up using them. But let's start with Oracle because there are 2. Okay. The first one is the Crystal Oracle. This is another Broccoli Mag deck. And then this one, for those who don't recognize it, this is a Game Crafters deck. This is called the Inner Landscape Oracle. Okay, and I technically used both of these during the month of May. I'll move actually this one to the side a little bit. I will start by saying I try to use the Crystal Oracle, but let me be frank here. I only use this deck like maybe a handful of times, and by handful I mean like probably 3 at most. These are the backs. It has this hollow edging, as you can see, that are gemstones if you go towards the light. But I'm going to be honest, I don't like any of their backs. I don't know why they do this. It feels very lazy. But anyways, this deck objectively I think is very beautiful. I am obsessed with the way the collage work is done. I like that this is a deck about minerals, right? And rocks and finding meaning in them and all that stuff. And I thought I would try to use this more when the month started off. But I think what was hard, and what can be hard sometimes with oracles for me, is that in the morning I was really busy a lot because, again, my month of May was very chaotic. So as a deck that I would normally pull out in the morning to do a quick oracle reading, I just found myself not as gravitated towards it, and I also didn't have the time. So what I ended up doing more was taking this pocket to work and then just doing the quick oracle reading there, because this was easy to take to work. But this, with this 2-piece box that has like it doesn't have thumb cutouts, so basically it could fall at any given time and just like, get lost and jumbled up in my bag. I was not going to do that, so unfortunately I just didn't end up using this very much. And again, I've said this before, but I do have problems with this style of oracle where you get the title, but then you get a bunch of keywords, and the keywords are just like, I don't know, it almost feels like word key vomit. I get very confused about having so many on the thing that I didn't use this oracle as much as I probably could have. But this oracle I used a lot. So let's talk about Inner Landscape. So yeah, as I said, this is a Game Crafters deck. A viewer asked me to do like a deeper walkthrough of this, and I do need to do that, and I will. It's on my schedule, but it is what it is. It does come with this little extra card. I'm showing this because there is a website down here that you can go to, and it has all the meanings of the cards on it. So basically it's like a virtual guidebook, but it's a website. So that's very helpful, and I've definitely used that for some of the cards here. These are the backs. As you can see, it's bridge size, pocket, or whatever. It's very good. The only thing I'm not as much of a fan of, and I've noticed this with a couple of Game Crafters decks, is I don't know if you guys can tell, see, it has a shine to it. And it feels slightly glossy. It's not like a super high gloss, but it's glossy enough and feels plasticky enough where it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not my favorite cardstock in the world. But that's like a common Game Crafters problem I've noticed. Anyways, these are the cards. I'm going to push these a little closer because, as you can see, this deck has little titles, but they're also kind of keywords at the same time, depending. But their font is not the easiest to read if you don't have like the sharpest of eyes. So there is that just to keep in mind. This is a funky little deck, but it was also very accurate. It gave me exactly the messages I needed. I really liked it. I initially got this to go with a different deck. I need to talk about that in one of my videos, a very specific video, and I'm actually going to see if they do pair up like I thought they would when I bought it. So that's why I did. But now I just kind of, I got this card one day, and that was wild. Disintegration. I was like, what is happening right now? But yeah, this deck is so fun. It's quirky. It's an interesting one. I think I don't know. I just think it's a deck that goes, because of the art style and the way it's presented, it does go with a lot of things. So it's not hard to pair, in my opinion. But yeah, I really enjoyed having this deck, using this deck. I think because, again, it was the month of May. It was pocket size. it was just so much easier to use this more than the Crystal Oracle. And so that's exactly what ended up happening. So that's Inner Landscapes. Let me see. What's next? What's next? I guess I'll talk about, okay. I'll talk about this next deck. I don't even know if I put this the right way. But anyways, this deck has gone by 2 different names. Originally, when it was indie, it was called the Circo Tarot. And then this version that you see here is a used copy of its mass market run. And it was called How to Deal Tarot. Now, I don't know. I hear very mixed opinions. I don't know if this deck, like how readily available this deck is. I got it used. I think it's still in production, but that's like a giant question mark. I have no idea if it's in or out of print or not or what. But anyways, these are the backs of this mass market version. The box on the bottom says Embrace Your Intuition. It also came with this giant guidebook called How to Deal Tarot for Everyday Life. You would think I would have looked into this, and it had some good spreads and stuff that I kind of wanted to try out, but May ended up being so chaotic that I did not do that. The other thing, oh, and speaking of cardstock, I like the cardstock actually of this. It's pretty bendy and flexible, but it still has a good resistance, and just it's a nice buttery soft texture. It's not what's it called, it's not a rose petal finish, but it does have this like sort of butteriness to it, so it's very interesting. Anyways, these are the backs, and this is a deck that you would think I would want to use. I was excited about the idea of using this in May, but I'm going to be real honest. When May came around, I don't think I used this deck even once. Did not. I don't know. There were just other decks I wanted to use, other decks that were kind of calling out to me more and caught my attention more. So I didn't reach for this one, which again, it has some actually interesting spreads. So I do want to go back and do that eventually. I just don't know when. But yeah, this is a funky one. It's very different. But yeah, out of all the decks that I'm going to talk about, this was the one I didn't use this at all. I was supposed to. I have a schedule. Again, I've talked about this so many times this year. I have a schedule of when I'm supposed to use decks, and I didn't reach for this one. Which is, again, it's sad, but sometimes it's like that, you know. You make plans to use some decks, but others kind of like take over your interest, or you just don't have time, and it just doesn't become a thing. So How to Deal was a deck that I did not use. But then, if we're talking about decks that I barely use, because that's also a thing too, right? I'm going to show, okay, I'll show these two. Maybe I'll show my wands or side by side or whatever, you know. Okay, these 2 decks I barely used this month. As in, I did one reading with them and then did not pick them up again. The first here is the Ephemeral Tarot. This is another indie. I feel like, wait a second. I think all the decks I use this month except for, oh wait, no. I'm lying, sorry. 2 of these are technically mass market, and then the rest are indie. So these are both indie. This is the Ephemeral Tarot, and here is, again, the Tarot's Tarot. I showed a Judgment card. We'll talk about this one in just a second. We'll start with this one. The Ephemeral Tarot is also a deck that I thought I would have used more this month, and then it just didn't happen because, again, life was chaotic. These are the backs. And this is, as you can see, it's a collage deck. And it's supposed to be more of a vintage feel. And it does have a lot of that vibe to it. There's something about this deck that reminds me of like the 60s and maybe parts of the 70s, but probably more of the 60s. It's got a collage style that also kind of reminded me of the Guided Hand Tarots. I almost call these like sister decks. I used this for one reading. The reading was fine. It was nice. But again, life just happened. Oh, sorry. In a way that I didn't go back to this deck. Which again is sad, but May was just such a chaotic time in general too that I wasn't doing too many crazy other readings. I will talk about the deck or two that I did use the most though. I mean, I say the most, but it wasn't like I was doing crazy amounts of readings. I maybe did like 3 or 4 readings with those, with one of them for sure. The other one was just a little more than this. But yeah, I basically just used this deck for 1 week ahead reading, and that was about that. These are the backs, by the way. This is the one thing about the deck I don't like. I don't actually like these backs. And the cardstock is fine. It's just like a simple, smooth finish cardstock. It's not anything like crazy here. So that's the ephemeral tarot. But when we talk about, let's see, Carrot Tarts, this is the deck. Okay, I love the Carrot Tarts tarot. I've talked about this deck a lot on my channel. I think I've shown it a bit too. But I have to say, I only did 1 reading with this deck because, and I'll put the Judgment card back in here just for whatever. I only did 1 reading with this deck because I've noticed, okay, this has been a pattern with this deck. The few times I have actually done full readings with this deck, I have noticed that, I don't know if anyone else has noticed it with this deck. It kind of has very, I kind of want to say trickster-like energy. It makes it, like, when I've done readings with this deck, it's made it seem like the reading was going to be a lot more dramatic than it actually was. But then it lightened situations that were actually dramatic. Like it inversed cards, if that makes sense. Like there was 2 days, like it was showing like the worst, but the day that it said was going to be the worst wasn't actually the worst. And then the day that was actually the worst wasn't the worst. So you know what I mean? Like they did like a weird inversion there. And then the only other time I remember really doing a reading with this deck, it literally was the literal worst. So it's like, I don't know. I love this deck and its art, but it gives off really chaotic and not so helpful vibes. I feel like I'm going to have to do, I don't know, maybe I need to redo. I don't remember when I did a tarot interview with this deck or if I did or what, but it gives off some really chaotic messaging there. So I don't know how I feel about it all the time. And that's probably why, again, I didn't reach for this more than 1 time. As you can see too, this is also a pips with feelings deck. And I rarely argue on that, like that it is pips with feelings. The swords are probably the worst suit though. They are very pippish, but like the wands and even the pentacles, you can still get some meaning out of this, like the 10 of Pentacles being a bunch of different buttons and the legacy of that and collecting them and all that. You can still get some sense of things from it. So yeah, I would say it's a pips with feelings, but Carrot Tarts Tarot was just interested in being a little trickster, a little mean, not as clear and chaotic in its more chaotic in its messaging, which again was not the vibe I wanted in May, especially because everything was so stressful. I was getting sick. It was just a lot. And so I did not reach for this deck more than the 1 time I did a week ahead reading with it, because it was just trying to be, I don't know, again, more trickster-like. But anyways, let's get into another deck. Okay, this deck I've used maybe, I want to say two or 3 times. I don't know. I think it was just 2 times. And this deck is the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic Tarot. Some of you who have been around a while on my channel might recognize this deck as the Tarot Advent deck I worked with. And so in that way, it was more like a study of the deck. And so this time I got to actually do a reading or 2 with this one, and I still love this deck. As you can see, it's very different. It is a collage deck, digital, I guess, but it has like slightly drawn elements too, but it's like mostly like flora, fauna kind of vibes instead of people. You see some hands in this deck, but there's not really people, basically. So it's mostly flora, fauna, things. And I really love it. It's just so different. The borders are a little quirky and out there, but it's still a fun time. It is bigger though. If you have smaller hands, this deck is a little cumbersome. It's not the worst out of the biggest decks I have, but it's still a little unwieldy. Oh, the cardstock on this deck is kind of strange too. I don't know if you see the light. You guys can kind of pick it up. It has like a slight texture coating, but it's on the smoother side. It has a good bend, but it's not like the greatest cardstock in the world either, and yet it makes it easier to shuffle. But yeah, as you can see, I have small hands. It makes it over, but it kind of like squishes them, and this one barely, doesn't even really go around. But going this way, for some reason, I'm still able to shuffle it a little bit. I don't know if it's just because of the thickness or the cardstock or what. I am able still to do this, so that's good. But obviously, because of its giant size, it makes more sense to go this way. But as you can see, even that is like not the greatest. It just creates a lot of problems. But yeah, despite all that, again, I really like this deck. It's a fun one. I don't know. It's just different. It felt like May vibes. I did use it again a couple of times, but it was not the most used deck of the month. I am going to show that one next though, because if I'm looking here, I don't think there's anything else. But yeah, this is the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic. It's guidebook. It does have a... I mean, there's a small version of it here that I can talk about a little bit. So this is the guidebook that it comes with. And what's cool about it is that each card has an assigned gemstone, a song on a playlist, and a scent assigned to it. So it's really, I don't know, it's just a fun, different experience with it. Some people like it, some people don't like that aspect, but I think it's cool. It's different. I don't really see any other deck doing that. So yeah, that's the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic tarot. And finally, the last tarot deck I used in the month of May, I am sorry to say, is now out of print, I'm pretty sure. But I think you can still find it in some places. This is the Spacious Tarot. Okay. And this ended up being the deck that I used the month in May because this was the energy I needed the most in the month of May. This says the space is for you. As you can see here, there's two little guidebooks. There's the original one that comes with the deck, but I also have the expansion guidebook in here because I have the expansion pack in here. At one point in time, it had an expansion pack. So I have that all combined. Oh, sorry. I am so sorry. What is going on with me today? I'm like slamming into things. Okay. Anyways, these are the backs of this deck. It's a little, with the expansion, it is a little bit on the chunkier side. Without the expansion, it's a little more wieldy, but it's still not bad. I think part of it's because this cardstock, as you can see, I don't know if you can tell, it's slightly smaller, I think, than tarot size, but only slightly. So it's, I don't know, it's very easy to use. The cardstock, I will say, it does have a little bit of a bend, but I don't know if I would riffle shuffle this because it doesn't feel like it'd be 100% flexible in that way, but it's really easy to overhand like I typically do. So I don't mind. Anyways, the card itself, the deck itself. Spacious Tarot is funny because it's one of those decks that while it was still in print, I got it when it was still in print. I've had this deck for actually a few years now. And I never until this year would say I had a strong bond with this deck, even though I was always drawn to this deck and its energy and its interesting messaging and the art and everything like that. I like that there's no people in this deck. I like that, as its name suggests, it's spacious. It really gives you like room to have nice soft messaging, and also feel things. I get a lot of the extra cards. So the expansion pack basically is more Manchiotti style or whatever it's called, where you have the 12 zodiacs in the expansion, and then there's four. What do they normally call them? Like virtues or something? I don't know. This deck did different ones for it. I know in the past, in some other decks, it's like different cards. Oh, and then this also has the elements. So it has like, fire, water, earth, air. And I don't know. Again, this month was just so brutal, especially when I was violently sick, that I needed this energy. I needed this help. I needed this gentle guidance. And so for that reason, I went with the Spacious Tarot, and it ended up being the right choice. This was exactly the deck that I needed in the month of May. And for that reason, I'm grateful for it. As you can see, it is more pippish too in nature, which will not be everybody's cup of tea. But if you had this deck, if you got this deck while it's still in print and you still have it, I do urge you to reevaluate your relationship with this deck, because it is brilliant. I now can't imagine not having this deck in my collection, not just because it is out of print, but because I was able to have build a stronger bond with this deck. And again, it just gave me, man, I don't know how to explain. It gave me exactly the message I needed a few times. I did a couple different spreads with this one, and it was so nice. I don't know. This is one of those sleeper hits for me, maybe. It just wasn't as strong of a connection I thought before. But then the more I've tried to use this or give me exactly the messages I needed, it really helped a lot. I am sorry that it is out of print now, but again, I think you can still find it for not too insane in prices around. I'm pretty sure. I've seen it on a couple of used, what's it called? Used tarot markets and stuff like that. So it's still kind of around. The reason why this deck had to go out of print, however, is because people were buying counterfeit copies of this deck, especially on websites like Temu and AliExpress, instead of paying full prices, what the creators wanted for this deck. So they decided to make the hard choice, but they put this deck out of print because they just didn't want any more counterfeits. And for that reason, I respect them. I understand, you don't want that happening. So great deck. If you can still get a hold of it, I highly recommend it. But yeah, those were all the decks I used in the month of May. Those were the books I read, life things. I don't have much else to say, so I'm going to head out. But I will see you guys all again next time. Bye.